Hi, I'm Robin. I'm trans, my pronouns are she, they, and if you're here during June, happy Pride Month. To catch up if you're not already aware, I had gender affirming surgery on the 21st of March. It is now 2nd of June, roughly 2.5 months after the surgery. My intention is to provide detailed information about my experience which may help inform others considering the same process. I have had some complications and I'm going to talk about them in this video. There's nothing major. I have a feeling that my experience is probably a bit easier than what most go through, but my surgeon told me that the majority of patients don't have much in the way of problems. This is mainly a talking head and you can just listen if you prefer. There may be a few matters that pertain just to the UK or to Wales in particular, because I think for the most part the experience would have been very similar in other countries. First, dilating. The dilation schedule recommended for me was to dilate 3 times a day with a gap of at least 6 hours between each dilation until my appointment for review with my surgeon. That was scheduled for 29th of May, 69 days after my surgery. That appointment could have been varied a week either way if it was inconvenient. What I was told was that if my neovagina lost depth, it would not be possible to regain it, but that it would be possible to regain width if needed. As you may well remember, I was provided with two dilators with different diameters. Here they are. For the first month or so, I pretty much exclusively used the smaller one as it was more comfortable to do that than to just use the larger one or switch during the dilation session. When I was about a month in, I decided to reintroduce the larger one. Dilation calls for insertion all the way to the dot that is indicated for your level of depth. For mine, it is the fifth dot, i.e. the last dot as you see here, and then you have to hold the dilator in place for 20 minutes. If you're swapping to the larger dilator, you stop the clock, take out the smaller one, insert the larger one to the right depth, and then resume the clock. I found that it roughly adds 3 minutes to the length of time needed to complete the dilation. After it is complete, it is necessary to clean out the vagina by douching with warm water. So you fill this up with warm water and squeeze that water out when it is inside you. And to clean the dilators after that, you use soapy water ready for their next use. It takes around 40 minutes in total, and I typically watch a bit of YouTube or something during a session. My understanding is that many girls lose about 1 to 2 centimeters of depth. This would be about 2/5 to 4/5 of an inch. I did not lose any depth, and my surgeon commented when he saw me in May that I had done well with my dilation. I am now dilating 2 times a day in the morning and evening. That will go down to once a day, then once every 2 days, then once a week, then twice a week, and eventually down to once a week when it goes down to once a week. Only 5 minutes of dilation is required, so it's not as huge a commitment as it might seem at first. It is up to me to decide when I can move to the next dilation frequency, and I can always move back a step if I start experiencing problems, which would be not inserting to the correct depth. It is suggested that the once weekly frequency could be achieved after a year. I've kept a record of when significant events happened in a spreadsheet, so I'll go through that sheet now. Firstly, I was sent home with a 5-day antibiotics course, which I completed on day 9 after the surgery. Blood on the dilator after withdrawal stopped happening roughly around the same time. On day 20, I stopped using period pads. There was still a little bit of discharge going on, but the discharge was clear and did not have any significant smell, so I felt that I could stop at that point. On day 23, I looked at how my healing was going. It seemed that there was some wound dehiscence, which is where the wound does not stay closed properly where the stitches are to heal. The amount of dehiscence seems rather small, and certainly compared to the pictures showing wound dehiscence in the information I was provided with. That was a Saturday. I could have phoned the ward up for advice, but I thought it was minor enough that it could wait for an email to the gender nurse on Monday. I did that, and wound dehiscence was identified as being present. In my case, this was just on one side and affected the 4 stitches nearest the vagina's hole on my left side. The pictures I had seen of wound dehiscence showed far worse dehiscence. Taking care of the dehiscence involved buying a tube of Activon medical grade Manuka honey and a visit to the GP to check for infection. That took place on Wednesday, day 27 after the surgery, and there was a small amount of infection present, so I was prescribed a 7-day course of flucloxacillin. This was 4 tablets a day to be spaced out as well as possible, and since I tend to suffer side effects from penicillin, I made sure to set an alarm to wake up early each day, take a tablet, and go back to sleep to get my 7 to 8 hours. The GP also took a swab for testing. The test came back inconclusive, but healing was going well enough that I didn't feel the need to have it rechecked. At 33 days after the surgery, I felt that healing had gone well enough such that I could begin driving again. There was no legal inhibition to me driving at any time since being discharged from hospital, but driving in itself could have been a cause of dehiscence if I had to brake for an emergency, which would involve putting a lot of pressure on the brake pedal. I probably could have started driving sooner than that, but at that stage I definitely felt that the risk associated with driving causing dehiscence itself was negligible. On day 44, I no longer felt the need for analgesics. I'd been taking paracetamol and ibuprofen in varying amounts on the days prior to that day. I don't have an exact record of the day that it occurred, but around a month after I came back home, I decided that it would be a good idea to start using the larger dilator again. It was more comfortable to do that at that time than it was immediately upon discharge from the hospital, but it significantly increased the amount of discharge from my vagina. Sometimes my knickers did feel rather wet. So I went back on the pads. I've tended to use size 1 pads in the daytime and size 2 pads at night. At 62 days after my surgery, that is 8 weeks from inpatient hospital discharge, I saw my GP to request bloods. They need to check levels of testosterone and estrogen and a couple of other things. The specific things that need to be checked were listed on a letter provided to them by the hospital, and I had seen that, so I know it was in there. Unfortunately, the GP I saw didn't know what the couple of other things that needed to be tested were and asked me to find out. I didn't have the details to hand. So I do have the bloods for testosterone and estrogen book, but not the others. Presumably, I'll have to talk to the Welsh Gender Service to find out what else was needed. I do remember that the target for serum estradiol is 400 to 600 picomoles per litre. The last time this was tested was at the end of titration in March 2022, and it read 680 picomoles per litre at the time, so I guess a little high is okay. So if you need periodic bloods, it's best to be armed with the knowledge as to which ones. All of the GPs I have seen have supported me, but not all of them have been knowledgeable about transition care. And now we come to my surgeon meeting at 69 days after surgery. He asked me how it was going, and I said, well, it isn't half wet. He said that's probably granulation tissue. He had a look and confirmed that that was the case. I had suspected that something like that was wrong. I had also suspected that it affected both my clitoris and my vagina, and this was also confirmed. That was treated with silver nitrate. Granulation tissue was present at the end of my vagina, so the tip, and at my clitoris. It was a slightly painful and not pleasant experience to have this treated, but I felt far worse. He said that he would have to see me again in a couple of months. He also said that I should insert the sugar cube every night, push it up inside my vagina as far as possible with my fingers, and then push it the rest of the way using Xylator. Then wash it out in the morning, and I have to do that every day until I see him again in a couple of months. That will help the granulation to heal. My God, can you imagine putting that in? I couldn't obtain sugar cubes on that day, but I did the day after. When it came time to insert it for the first time, I looked at it and I thought, that's going to be painful. Sure enough, it was very painful and hard to insert. Why couldn't they make sugar balls? I know that there are some cake decorations like that, but they're probably not the right kind of sugar. Sugar cubes have some quite sharp edges and they're not comfortable to insert. After the first day of using these sugar cubes, I noticed that the cubes have a long side to them. Obviously, that means that they're technically not cubes, but also it's the case that there is an easier direction in which you can insert them. The discharge after the silver nitrate treatment was kind of dark grey. It didn't look nice, but it didn't smell. There was quite a bit more in the first couple of days than usual. Now it's gone back to clear. I think the discharge from my clitoris has stopped. Of interest also is that I believe I am capable of a small amount of self-lubrication. Whether or not that will change as my problem becomes fixed, I don't know, as I have had knickers that were very wet around dilation time, and I've also had the experience once of inserting the larger dilator and finding that it slid in far easier than it normally does. I found an article from Dr. ZPHD's website that quotes from gender affirming surgeon Dr. Wittenberg, which says the following about penile inversion vaginoplasty. If a person pre-comes with excitation preoperatively, this is from the existing Cowper's glands, I may have mispronounced that, and some additional fluids from the prostate, then that will persist postoperatively as those structures stay in place. For these women and gender non-binary individuals, there is a chance that they may not need additional lube. Further research suggests that this happens in 40% of cases. I had been led to believe that there is no self-lubrication, but it seems that in some cases it can actually happen. If it can happen with me, I only want it to happen when it is appropriate, so I do have mixed feelings about this. Have I got there? Not yet, but I have felt a measure of arousal a couple of times. Some of my feeling has returned, but probably not enough to get there yet. I need to get some toys at some point and explore, but I'm not in any hurry. One thing that I found amusing is the other day I caught myself having stood next to the toilet ready to pee. I thought, I can't do that anymore, and laughed inside. So technically, 4 complications, but all of them minor. Nothing that's meant I need to go through another round of surgery. Nothing that's been significantly life altering. No fistulas or anything like that. It's a pain having to go to London for the treatment, but I am there and back in a day. It costs £99 for a super off peak return from my station in Cardiff to London Paddington, and then it's around £3 for each trip on the London Tube, one to get there and one back. It's also possible to buy a ticket from Cardiff to Putney, which is slightly cheaper, but you have to change at Reading and then again at Ascot, I believe. It's a longer journey and there's more chance of the journey going wrong because there's more trains involved. So having said that, there was a signalling failure on the district line when I went to London last time that meant taking 3 trains rather than one on the tube. The district line was not operating past High Street, Kensington, so I had to use the Circle line from Paddington to there, then get a district line train to Earl's Court, then I was finally able to get a train from Earl's Court to East Putney. My recommendation is that you should always consider that there may be problems on the journey up and have some time to spare so that you can deal with them if needed. If using a super off-peak return like I did, you can't leave Paddington between 1500 and 1900 approximately, as the ticket is not valid for that, but it does save around £30 from the price of a normal off-peak ticket. I'll probably post another update after I've seen my surgeon again. In the meantime, I hope you found this helpful. Feel free to do all the usual stuff, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.